For those of you who do not know me, my name is Adelia Kirchner. I have been a writer at the Tennessee Conservative for almost 2 years now. And I wanted to hop on here real quick with a little bit of an unscripted video. Don't know where I'm going to go with this. We'll see. And talk to you a little bit about something that Brandon mentioned back a couple months ago. And that is sending a real live person to the Capitol in Nashville to report during the legislative session. And if you keep up with our email newsletter, you will know that he also sent out an email announcing that that reporter we would be sending would be me. So I wanted to hop on here real quick and kind of talk to you guys about why it's so important that we be able to do this and how us being able to do this would benefit you guys as our readers and viewers across the board. So, without further ado, since I've been with the TTC, we have covered 2 consecutive legislative sessions, and I will say with like 100% certainty that it is our most hectic time of the year. Why is that? Well, it's because we are the only Tennessee media outlet that is as invested as we are in getting you as much information about what's going on in the legislature during that time of year. Like, we are pouring through all of the stuff we can. Me, all the other writers on our team, Jason Vaughn, our media coordinator, sort of editor-in-chief, like, we spend hours upon hours upon hours sifting through all these bills, figuring out what is going to be the most important for us to keep track of, like what you guys want to keep up with, what we want to keep up with, all that good stuff. And we spend as much time as possible analyzing those bills, figuring out what exactly they do so we can give you a concise and clear picture of what the heck this 15 pages of legalese actually means. And you guys are busy. You have jobs, you have families to raise, so we want to take a little bit of that burden off of you by giving you as much information as we can, as clearly as we can. As much accessibility, I guess, is the word that I'm going for. Our main goal is to make the legislative session as accessible to you guys as conservative voters as we can. So, what exactly goes into that? So what we do is we go through all these bills, we figure out which ones are the most important for us to keep track of, and then we go with them the entire legislative session. We follow these bills through the committee process. If they make it out alive, we follow them to the House floor and the Senate floor. If they, again, make it out alive and they pass, then we follow them to the governor's office, and we talk about how it's actually going to come into effect. So we do all this in the interest of informing you guys and making sure that you know what's going on in our state, where we live, how it's affecting you guys as Tennesseans. Now, when we're doing this, we do have access to committee recordings, House and floor session recordings, and then we have access to like the bill texts and the amendment texts. Pretty much all the same stuff that you guys have access to that, you might just not have time in your schedule to sift through. Now, the only thing about this, okay, is that we're doing it from all the way over here. Capitol's over here. We're doing all this work for you guys all the way over here, because our biggest inhibitor in bringing you guys accessibility during the legislative session is that none of us can physically be at the Capitol in person. Like me, Paula, David, Olivia, Brandon, Jason, all of us, okay? We are all spread out way across the state. None of us are within a reasonable commute to the Capitol, to the point where we can like be up there every day and getting behind the scenes interviews and actually sitting in on committee meetings, all the stuff that you can do when you're actually there at the Capitol. We can't do that. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the perks of being able to do that, and how us having more direct accessibility to what's going on in the legislative session will directly bring you more accessibility. So yeah, I guess let's talk about it like this. So I have worked in an active state legislature. I interned for the South Dakota state legislature. And I get it all the time. People are like, why didn't you do the Tennessee legislature? Well, I wasn't living in Tennessee at the time. I was living in Texas when I was looking for places to intern for, and I had no intention of like staying in Texas, I guess. So I was looking at other states that were more conservative because I wanted to test out the waters and see what those states were like. So I ended up in South Dakota doing an internship for their state legislature. While I was there, when I tell you the amount of things that happen in the hallways, behind closed doors, all of that stuff, when even on the floor of the house, when the cameras are off. I mean, all of that stuff is so important. It's all so entangled with all the stuff that we do see on the cameras, that we do see in the bills and the amendments and everything. And all of that stuff we don't have access to as writers here at TTC, because none of us are actually there at the Capitol in person. And it's just so much happens that we're not there for. And I think about it often as somebody who is doing this grassroots reporting. There was a reporter up in South Dakota who was just probably one of the more energetic ones I had ever encountered. Because some of them would just walk around the Capitol, they'd get their comments and they'd walk away or whatever. But this guy, if he didn't get his comment right away from a legislator, he kept asking. So I remember the lawmaker that I was working for was like super busy. He was like a committee chairman and like had a whole schedule. We were moving from room to room to room to room to room. This reporter guy would poke his head into the office like every 5 seconds if he had a question for the lawmaker I was working for, and he'd be like, "Hey, is Representative so-and-so busy? Okay, I'll be back. Hey, is Representative so-and-so busy? Got it, I'll be back. Hey, is Representative so-and-so busy?" And at some point it gets annoying, right? But he got an answer. By the end of the day, he walked out of the Capitol building with his answer, with his comment from the representative I was working for. So, I guess we'll put it this way. Okay, so working remotely, when I have a question or one of our other writers has a question for a representative or a senator, somebody who's sponsoring a bill, whatever, we can call, we can email, and we may hear back from the representative or the senator or their legislative assistant, but most likely we will not get any sort of response. So that is why oftentimes you'll see some line in our articles that says something like, Representative so-and-so was reached out to by the Tennessee Conservative and has not yet responded with a comment as of the publication of this article, something like that. And I'm just gonna say this. If we have somebody up there during the legislative session to in person walk up to a lawmaker and ask a question, our answer rate is gonna like skyrocket. Because how easy is it, even in your daily life, how easy is it for you to ignore an email or a text or a call completely or until the next day or whatever, right? Pretty easy. But if somebody walks up to you in person and asks you the same question that they asked in their voicemail or in their text or their email, well, it's a lot easier for you to just be like, oh, this is my answer, instead of having to type it back or having to get on the phone and be there for however long. Like, if I walk up to a representative in person and I say, hey, what is your comment on this? They can just give me a 2-sentence answer and walk away. And if they don't give me an answer right away, they might say, come by my office later, or they might ignore me, who knows. But being there in person, I can walk up to them again and I can ask them again. Isn't it funny how that works? So another perk of having one of us up at the Capitol is related to citizen testimony. How many times are there controversial bills or even not so controversial bills that still pretty directly affect people of a particular community, and you have all these citizens show up to provide testimony? And when we're watching the committee recordings and stuff, okay, we can say in our article, so-and-so showed up to committee, said this in their testimony, they were for or against this bill, whatever. But having somebody up at the Capitol turns so and so showed up to testify against or for this bill and said blah 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 into so and so showed up to testify for or against this bill, said blah blah blah, and when we ask them why or we ask them whatever, this is what they said. It also turns into, I mean, how many different citizens show up and don't get to share their testimony? They don't get to say anything because the committee cuts everybody off at 1 minute and only allows like 10 minutes of testimony, whatever it is. Who's there who can ask the people who didn't get to speak what they came to say? Moi. Okay? That's kind of important, right? So, in doing that, we would get a little bit more information from the citizens who are coming and are so passionate about these pieces of legislation. And on top of that, we can get that perspective from people who might not have gotten to speak before the committee. So that's important to me. Another thing, in-person interviews. That's something that we're not capable of doing from afar. Unless we live in the same district as a particular representative and they come home on the weekends. You know what I mean? So, one of the cool things that we would be able to do if this pans out is talk to lawmakers. Like, have a sit down for like 15, 20 minutes and do an interview. Whether that's about multiple pieces of legislation, one piece of legislation, something controversial that ends up happening, because Lord knows that something always comes up. But that's something that you haven't been getting, that you would be getting as a viewer and a reader of TTC if we are able to do this. Let's see. What else? Real-time news. You know how many times since I've been writing for the Tennessee Conservative that I've seen somebody comment or heard somebody say, that happened like 2 days ago. That happened like yesterday. Why are you just now saying this? Yeah, we know that happened already. And it's like, I get it. We're a little bit, we're a little bit slow on the uptake sometimes. But that is because we are a very small group of people. Now, one thing you will notice about media outlets like the Tennessean and so on and so forth, okay, is that their reporters, when they're at the Capitol, are able to sit there with their phones and tweet out real-time news. Can we do that from sitting all the way afar? I mean, we could. It just might still be a little slow, right? Because we're not actually there. But that is something that you may be able to have if we're able to send somebody up there, right? Is real-time news updates on some of the bigger issues during the legislative session. I don't know. Might be a perk. I guess it depends on your social media usage. But yeah. Anyways, like I said at the beginning of this video, there's not going to be any begging. It's your money. I mean, tis the season of giving, okay? Christmas is coming up, and then there's the legislative session. So, wherever your priorities are, those are the two big events coming up. But I'm not going to tell you where to spend your money, but I am going to encourage you to put your money where our mouth is. And I say that jokingly, but like actually seriously, okay? Because our mouth is, it's a way to get conservative opinions out there. It's a way to get actual news out there from a conservative perspective. It is a way to inform you more than we already do. So, yeah, I'm hoping this will happen. It would be amazing. And so I want to go ahead and say thank you to everyone who has already contributed financially to this effort, and thank you in advance to those of you who are going to contribute to this effort. As always, your readership is appreciated, your listenership is appreciated, and again, there's a reason we exist, and it is you guys. Because if you guys didn't exist, if our supporters, if our readers didn't exist, we wouldn't exist. Like, what's the point in doing anything that we do if we're not doing it for somebody. Like, if you guys weren't there to do it for, we wouldn't have any reason to do it, right? And, what's the point in doing this if it's not positively impacting somebody? Which I believe it is. And I've had some of you say to me that it is. So, yeah, put your money where our mouth is so that our mouth can continue to exist and continue to bring you actual news from a conservative perspective, actual news from the Capitol, where you have a conservative voice asking the questions that you have as fellow conservatives.